Tēnā koutou e te whānau. Okay, I'm going to sing you just a little waiata. And this waiata is dedicated to all those people that might be feeling a bit mamai at the moment. You know, if you're feeling a bit down and out, you're not thinking straight, feel the whole world's against you, you know, and nothing just seems to be going right at the moment for you. Keep your head held high. One thing is for sure, don't forget about the good Lord above, because he'll never forget about you. And all you need to do is pātai atu ki aia. He's got all the answers for everything. Okay, so God bless you all. Ngā whakamoimiti o iho ngā mano, matua tamawai rua tapu. Me ngana hira pono, mā ngai hei tautoko mai, ahe nei ake nei. Here we go. So waiata wrote, I think 2000, I think it was. Te atua Anei apana ngai whakamaimiti atu ki a koe Kia tuku a mai to aloha me to marama Taka Kia tika taku haere ki te mata o te whenua Kia uto maramatanga ki roto I a hape Te atua Whakatupera ti a mai te tataru o te tika Pai here ti a ki te rangi marie tātaru katoa Kia noho tahi tāta ki raro I tō aro aro Kia noho puma toku noa te toku atu Aue te atua Aue
Oh, kia ora, kia ora, kia ora I te whānau. So I'm just testing out my new toy. And the reason why I've got this on is so my darling can also listen to his TV. So can you hear me clearly with this new gadget on? Because it's supposed to block out any other side noise. So, hun, you can turn your TV up. You don't have to turn it down. I'm just checking and waiting for comments. Kia ora. Can you hear me with this gadget on? I can hear myself. Aye, flash. Cool. Anyway, so loud and clear you all say. That's cool. So my darling can listen to his news. He's got Te Ao news on, and he's just cooking him our mokopuna. We got home yesterday from Tauranga Moana, and our mokopuna came in, and they had their koro, these massive big snapper fish heads. And so that's, guess what's for his lunch? He had one fish head last night for dinner, and he's cooking the other fish head. I'm not a fish head eater myself. I do like the flesh of the meat, but not so much the fish head. And it's one of my husband's favorite kai. So they had caught a massive snapper when they went fishing. And as beautiful mokopuna they are, they gave us some fillet, and the favourite part of it for my husband is the fish head. So half of the fillets are gone inside to my daughter, and the other half is for us when we decide to make homemade batter and fry them up. He just prefers to fry them up in butter. And I've got another mokopuna. It's his birthday today, so to our moko out at Rahu Pōkeka, wishing you a very, very happy birthday, and to all those mamas. Like we had Mother's Day yesterday, and it's great that we acknowledge all our mamas. And I put up a 4-generation photo of my mum, myself, my daughter, and our mokopuna. And I was trying to share share what my daughter had put up on my personal page, which was beautiful photos of my other daughter as well, but I couldn't quite share it. I don't know what was happening with Facebook. But we've had a monumentous weekend. Went there for the outdoors party AGM to confirm my role as co-leader for the Outdoors and Freedom Party. And as I've been alluding you to in a number of lives, that things were happening. So I can now say that I resigned from Te Pāti Māori, the Māori Party, and we're still whānau. At the end of the day, we're still whānau, and I had some amazing moments, some amazing times. The campaign was amazing. Had some massive learnings, and I guess it's really difficult for me to even kōrero about, because they're still whānau, and I still do wish Te Pāti Māori well, and I will probably see them out on the campaign trail as well. And as you've seen with a lot of the media, they are touted as being the king or queen maker. It seems that they're going to be more the queen maker than they are the king maker, and they are certainly telling ACT. ACT is a real concern. Why is ACT a real concern? Because they're looking at getting rid of the Human Rights Commission and the Race Relations Conciliator. And that's a real worry for me, because as I've stated in the past, when you start taking rights away from the people, then you're empowering the state, giving the state more power and giving the people less power. And I wanted to talk about what's happening with our police force. And is it a good idea? I mean, I just want to have this conversation. Is it a good idea to fund them $500 million? And is defunding a potential option? Because we know at the occupation, people had experienced police brutality. The militarization of our police force is a concern. Now, I know there's been a lot of ram raids and these little Haututu kids. What's happening with these Haututu kids? But there are more underlying causes. Poverty is a huge thing. Our children are being born into poverty, not having a home, homelessness. People are saying, yes, they're stealing, labeled gears. Well, it's there to fuel drug addictions and all the other addictions that sit with an impoverished community. So I guess I want to have a little kōrero about that as well. But anyway, I want to acknowledge you all for coming on to my page. Kia ora Tangi, kia ora Desiree, thank you for tuning in. Kia ora to you, Kim, Kahu, Judith, thank you. Aaron Paul. What does Aaron Paul say? It is if you want to be able to stomp away further dissension and protest. Let's hope their trainers are ethical and moral Kiwis. I think that you're making a comment in regards to the funding, and I think we have to have an open kōrero about that, and I think we have to have an open debate about that. Kia ora Tangi, thank you for thank you. So that's Tangi, Kapu, Kahu, Judith, thank you for tuning in. Michelle, Desiree, Eunice, kia ora, haven't seen you for a while. Thank you for tuning in. Good reception. Oh, thank you. Coming out clear and flash. Thank you. Thank you. Kia ora, Tiga. You're awesome. Congratulations. Jesus says congratulations. Thank you. Nikki says hi. Joanne, kia ora for tuning in, Joanne. And Paya says congratulations, Fire. Thank you, hun. And Ellie, kia ora. Oh, cool. Thank you, Ellie. Really appreciate you tuning in. And thank you, Tangi. You're very welcome. Very welcome, whānau. And Sil. Kia ora, Sil. So I'm just gonna play a news clip and then we'll come back and have a kōrero. So I'll share that, whānau. I'll mute myself.
Terrorist attack, and just under 100 million the government $1 into the country's police force after weeks of rising gang and ram raid crime. The $562 million investment into police includes keeping a ratio of one officer per 500 people, rolling out the controversial tactical response model nationwide, which will mean more uniformed officers with access to guns. A new firearms unit that will oversee the country's firearms register, a recommendation from the Royal Commission of Inquiry following the March 15th terrorist attack. And just under $100 million will be spent directly on gangs and organised crime. The announcement comes just days after our News Hub Read research poll found nearly 70% of Kiwis believe our police minister is too soft on crime. Here's political reporter Imogen Wells again with more on this story.
New Zealand, we've got a crime conundrum. Just this weekend, one person's been arrested, 7 bikes seized, and 130 infringement notices issued at a headhunters gang anniversary in Auckland. Kiwis are anxious.
It is quite a worry. Be concerned about it getting worse.
It's a bit of a fear. You'd never do enough because it'll always be there.
Part of the problem are national gang lists in a muddle. Currently, there are 7,691 people on there, and while the government insists it's easy to get on it but hard to get off it, ACT claims police are in overdrive to chop the numbers. In 2021, 1,074 people were removed. That's more than 3 previous years combined, and more than the numbers added to it that same year.
More people have been coming off the list than going on it, when the reality is that more people are in gang activity on every street in this country.
So, in a bid to curb the country's rise in crime, the government's dropping some serious dollars. $500 million being spent on our police force alone over the next 4 years. $100 million directly on targeting gangs.
While Australia has been exporting its gang problem to New Zealand, we're having to deal with the consequences.
They have completely, totally failed in taking any action until now. It's too late. It's going to be much harder to actually get on top of the problem.
But to try and get on top of the problem, the government's also committing to 1 police officer for every 500 New Zealanders.
We want fit New Zealanders.
Back in 2017, Labour vowed to add an additional 1,800 cops to the force. That goal will finally be achieved by the end of 2022, 5 years after we were promised it.
Great. That's a great news story.
On Thursday, our News Hub Read research poll found 70% of Kiwis think our police minister's too soft on crime. Portal Williams hopes today's announcement gets the public on her side.
I think a record investment in police goes to show we take this seriously.
Funding's also being poured into the wider law and order sector, with $200 million for rehabilitation programs and a promise of more correction staff. But with unemployment at its lowest in 16 years, it's not clear where we'll find those new recruits.
Initially, we'll be looking within New Zealand, of course, but there's potentially overseas options.
And this isn't the end of a law and order spend up. Today's announcement was pre-budget, so expect more cash to be splashed on crime come May 19. Imogen Wells.
Jenny Craig suits my busy life perfectly. The convenience of food come to my door. It couldn't be more ideal.
Oh, kia ora. Sorry, because I think I've got this on. Normally I have to mute to play my videos. This time I had to unmute it. But I just wanted to, this clip is a couple of days old, but I think it's really important because is it the right way to go? Putting nearly $600 million into the police force. So if we remember what happened over in the US, is funding the police the best way to go to keep everyone safe? The call to defund the police may make sense according to research, but to understand why, we need to go beyond the slogan. In response to George Floyd's recent killing by police, Minneapolis decided to disband its current police department and invest more in community-led public safety measures. For some, this seems like a radical move, but for those who've seen police reform doing little to prevent police brutality against African Americans or against their poorer communities, it's not so far-fetched. We have failed African Americans and other poorer communities, and we need to entirely reshape the system. We need a full-on cultural shift in how our Minneapolis police department and departments throughout the country function, said the mayor of Minneapolis during an interview by ABC News. Other cities are considering following suit. So, and what they're saying, and can we have that conversation? I mean, Māori have been at the strong arm end of police brutality for nearly 200 years, since the constabulary started, and actually started in my neck of the woods in New Plymouth. And after seeing what the corruption within the police force over in the US and how racism and racists can hide behind a badge, they decided to go down a different route. Now, we have just given $600 million, and here's my concern, because I fought against arming the police, the arms response team, ARTS for short. I fought really, really hard, and we were successful. Now they've included the tactical response team, which is no different, right? No different to the arms response team. I showed you a picture of armed police within our communities, and it's trying to get our communities used and normalizing them wearing guns. Is this the right track, Whānau? I just want to bring up some of your comments. Yeah. Tigger said, put that money into housing and food and the crime rate will decrease. Well, absolutely. Absolutely. So if we go back to the core problems, right? We go back to the core problems of poverty and impoverishment, homelessness, and then you see the two members of parliament, Tamati Coffey and who was the other national politician, arguing over homelessness within Rotorua, right? Here's the thing. Both those establishment parties let us down. Both of those establishment parties led governments that had the opportunity to turn the homelessness around. Has it become a right or a privilege to have a home and to hold a job? because it's starting to feel like it's become a privilege because we're normalizing homelessness. And is it that we're investing in the police force rather than investing in our communities? Where could that $600 million have gone? Like Tigger said, it could have gone into housing. It could have gone into just the basic needs to survive, right? What does Jackie say? This was all designed by political leadership for it to go this way. What else does Lindy Lou say? Oh, for goodness sake, the Hells Angel had a similar anniversary years ago. They actually turned some back from America. Gangs are shooting each other in the 80s. It's only noticed because of hand-wringing citizens on social media. It's utter rubbish. Thank you for your input, Lindy. What does Bell say? Defund the police. They are nothing more than an armed costume thugs killing our whānau and violently beating members of the public. My son was seriously assaulted by them in Rotorua. He was not a threat to them. I have video footage to prove it. Well, I was at the end of police brutality, and he was a Māori police officer too, so it doesn't matter. Once you join the police, it's a them and us attitude, and he was an arrogant so-and-so. I still have problems with my shoulder. I go to the pools with my darling every day. We went this morning, took one of our mukupuna who loved it. She didn't want to leave. We had to bribe her to leave the pools. But all of it's part of helping us with our aging bodies. And my shoulder, my rotary cuff has been seriously injured, and I probably will have problems with it because of a police officer who treated me like a young buck, twisted my arm, nearly broke it. He didn't care what damage he did. He didn't even care that I was a queer either. So they don't care. They were there. It was protest trying to protect the whenua from if we've been in Kirikiri, there's the bird sanctuary there. So we were trying to protect the bird sanctuary, and after the bird sanctuary, there was a number of old wahitapu sites. So we went there and protested, and there was an occupation there, and I got assaulted. I actually jumped in to protect the queer, and I got assaulted in the process. So I've experienced police brutality personally. I've experienced police corruption personally, and I've experienced police racism over my lifetime. So I know that there are major issues. How the heck can we arm the police when the police are racist and they haven't dealt with that culture within them, and rather than defund them? So why wouldn't we fund them to get crime down, to keep crime down, rather than fund them to be a threat against their own citizens? Yes, they can use the ram raids and what's happening there. Yes, they can use the fear and concern of the shopkeepers, because there are major concerns. Well, here's the thing: here in Hamilton and Kirikiri, because the police aren't doing their job, so they're getting all this money, right? What do they do with that money? We have no say. We have no say on what they do with that money, right? And because the police weren't actually policing our community, our local shopkeepers had to rely on gangs to police their shops for them, because they weren't doing the job. They weren't attending crimes in our community. So we don't feel like they're protecting them. And yes, where is the oversight? Where is the oversight between the police, who in our community feel that they're just legalized thugs? Because that's our experience, right? Don't get me wrong, I've met some really good police officers, but they're not the police officers that are getting into the media for brutality, for assaults, for racism. So, you know, we have to deal with the culture of the police and stop the dog whistling, because both Labor and National have let us all down. When you let the poor brown communities down, you let society down as a whole. And I've said it and I will say it again. Māori and brown communities are the canary in the mine. Once they're done with this community, they will move on to the masses, because that's exactly what we've been experiencing. And they aren't there for our safety. We've noticed with the occupation and the segregation of our communities by politicians that we have to get out of Parliament. They do not have a right to represent us when they segregated us. They do not have a right to represent us when they don't respect Te Tiriti or Waitangi, when they don't respect the partnership between tangata whenua and tangata tiriti. They don't have the right to represent us. So there's a lot of politicians out there that are pushing a narrative and a rhetoric that to curb crime, we have to fund the police. Don't be fooled by that. Do not be fooled by that. They have funded. Now, let's see if crime comes down. What we're going to see is more police brutality. What we're going to see is more of my people being shot dead. My sons, my nephews, my mokopuna at the risk 11 times more likely than my Pākehā whānau to be shot, maimed, and killed by New Zealand police. They are 11 times more likely to be killed than their counterparts in the UK, whose population is 13 times ours. And now we go and fund them because of all the dog whistling, that our communities are no longer safer. These kids, has anyone ever gone into those communities and said, what is it that you need? We have a drug epidemic here. Now, I want to remind us where this meth drug epidemic come from. You remember Peter Dunn, and you remember his party, United Future. You remember when they legalised synthetic marijuana. I've been told by my own whānau that when they legalised synthetic marijuana, people who were, ordinary marijuana smokers went from marijuana smoking to synthetic marijuana, right? Because it was legal. The only reason why they shifted is because it was legal. They can go out and they can purchase it, like buying the cigarettes at the shop. Then the government, so once they got them all hooked on the synthetic marijuana, then they made it a criminal act. So they legalized it, then they made it a criminal act to purchase synthetic marijuana after they had, listen to this, whānau, after they had captured a whole generation and turned them into synthetic marijuana addicts. So they made it illegal again. These cohorts went back and tried ordinary marijuana again, and they did not get the same high, or they did not get the same fix. So they went from that into meth, and that's how that's how that problem came about. I've been told by whānau, they went from marijuana to synthetic marijuana. When it was illegal again, they went back to marijuana, didn't get the high they needed, so moved to meth. So we have Peter Dunn. Remember, his son, who's a lawyer, was working for these synthetic marijuana owners of those businesses. So we can thank the so-called Christian party for basically addicting a whole generation into meth. And I just need to share that, because I've been holding on to that corridor for quite some time. But I just want us to be aware how government policies can influence and shift, and that's called social engineering, right? They would have had research knowing this. But does anyone have the balls, I guess, to put that comment out there? Well, I do, because they addicted a whole generation. It's like a lost generation meth. Now, going back to these ram raids, is that all part of this addiction to meth? And is the real issue meth? Is the real issue poverty? Is the real issue lack of employment opportunities? And are we seeing the boil being lanced, all the pari starting to come out from the last 2 years of sheer hell in this country? I mean, the last 2 years where I do want to share Liz Gunn's video where she talks to a lot of different people who have been impacted in different ways, whether vaccine injured or lost their jobs or through mandates. I do eventually want to share her video so you can hear the kōrero from the waha of the people who have been impacted over the last 2 years by this cruel government. There's no kindness in this government. So I'm just going to go back. So Belle says defund. What does Eunice say? Kia ora, spending more at tail end is not the way to go. We need to fund the first response, i.e. more social workers, more community action is better. Well, absolutely, Eunice. Invest that $600 million in the first responders, into counsellors, into mental health. And we need to put more investment into housing. So where's this government's housing policy? We need to tax the wealthy. They still use our roads. They still can use our hospitals. They still can use what the state has brought and purchase the services, goods and services that the state has brought with our taxpayers' money. So, we have to actually look at our taxing regime and, I think the wealthy have had a free run. The haves and the have not, that gaps especially over the last 2 years. There's a huge gap now. We've got a lot of people that have lost, a lot of professionals that have lost their jobs because of mandates. We've got hospitals screaming out for staff, and yet they refuse to employ those that have lost their jobs through mandates. So there's certainly a lot of conversations that haven't been had that need to be had. And I want to acknowledge Sue Gray for her bid for Tauranga in the by-election. You couldn't get anyone better. I've seen her in action. She's an advocate at grassroots level. As I am an advocate at grassroots level, her and her tāne have travelled the width and the length of our country, advocating for us, for all of us. And I think me becoming co-leader of the Outdoors and Freedom Party is showing that treaty relationship in action. Where we respect each other, where we there's areas that I have my strengths, and there's areas where she has her strengths, but bring those two strengths together and bring our leadership. And how do we show our leadership? We are doers. Both her and I are doers. And advocating at a political level is no different to advocating at a grassroots level, at a local level, at a community level. You're just advocating, at a national level. I see it as no different, and I said that in the Māori Party as well when I joined the Māori Party. So there are very, very exciting times ahead of us. We've got our local body elections coming up, so whānau. We've got for the first time, we've got our Māori constituent seats within local bodies, so we're going to see a lot of Māori put their hands up for the first time to run for those Māori seats. Those Māori seats I fought really hard for here in Kirikiriroa. I also fought for the name changes of those rapists and murderers to get their names like Von Von Tempsky and Bryce, to get, yes, we got rid of Von Tempsky Street, and now we need to get rid of Bryce Street. There's a number of them. Grey Street, these were men that had a genocidal strategy against my tupuna. So when we see their names, we are incensed by that they're glorified in the way that they are. You cannot glorify murderers and rapists of children, and that's exactly what's happened. So it is important for us to know our history, because if we don't understand our history, then we're more than likely going to repeat it. So I fought against keeping these street names, and I must say Hamilton City Council has got rid of Von Tempsky, but that's just the beginning as far as I'm concerned. But thank you, whānau. I'm just going to go. I don't know what you're saying, Chris. Blah blah blah. Moon. I don't know what that means. I mean, if you got a comment, at least make sense in your comment. Because that sort of shows you up more than it shows me if you're just making a mockery and come on to make a mockery. I mean, if you don't agree, cake the pie. Just put down you don't agree. I mean, I'm asking, what's your whakaaro? Anyway, no to guns, community cops on the beat 24/7, I believe is the answer. We did used to have community cops, and we all knew them by name. And so I too have been asking for many years for community cops. And, isn't it better that we build a relationship with our police officers than they become just part of the brand? And the brand isn't good. When we saw what happened at the occupation in Wellington, the police brand is not a good brand, and now they've been given more money. So let's carry on with that conversation, and let's have that conversation with all our politicians, whether it's the by-election, whether it's just you make comments on their emails. Because at the end of the day, they're still working for you. You don't work for them, they work for you. What does Eunice say? Hi Donna, what's the name of your new party? I want to check it out. Congratulations again. So I am the co-leader for the Outdoors and Freedom Party. So go check them out. What they stand for is thriving people, thriving communities, thriving environment, and a thriving democracy. Because if you don't have a thriving democracy, you do not have thriving communities. You do not have a thriving environment. So think about that. Think about it. Moving from Te Pāti Māori over to a new party, I had to move into a party that aligned with my values. And this party aligns with my values. Protecting Papatūānuku is right up there as a Māori, as a kaitiaki is right up there. So there are a lot of values that I align with the Outdoors and Freedom Party. So remember, thriving people, thriving community, thriving environment, and a thriving democracy. You've got to have a thriving democracy to have the rest. Okay, so I hope that answered your question, Eunice. What do you have to say, Belinda? I think more money to police is ridiculous. They are wasting police resources on peaceful protests. Look at what happened in Christchurch in the weekend just gone. Bugger them being armed. They will shoot at will. And that's the scary part. That's the scary part. And like I say, let Māori be the canary in the mine. And, our people are getting killed by New Zealand police. We are experiencing police harassment with a young couple now and their whānau. They've sent armed officers and canines out for this 22-year-old. He is seeking help because he fears for his life and not sure who to turn to. Can you give me a private message and let me? I don't know what I can do. I don't know what I can do, but I can certainly try and awhi. There are people that have experienced corruption by canine dog holders. If they think you are, they will intimidate you. I've heard of intimidation and corruption within the police canine units. So Just a warning out there. We want to know if you're going to fund them, if you're going to fund the police, you haven't sorted out the internal problems that are sitting there right now. And it worries me because there's a lot of thuggery within the police force. Do I have faith in them? No, I don't. The data and the stats speak for itself. Do we want our shopkeepers to arm themselves? No, we don't. We don't want, people thinking that they can, it sort of feels like we're turning into a bit of a banana republic or some sort of third world country. It's feeling that way. With my father being in hospital, the experience that I had there, and the nurses saying, I feel like I'm working in a third world hospital. So our society is definitely being challenged. We now hear that there's a new, what's it called? Monkeypox, I think it's called. And we've been waiting for that, We've been waiting for another pandemic, Because remember, the globalists, and Jacinda Ardern is a globalist. She is an alumni for the World Economic Forum. Don't be fooled. She is a globalist. Her mentor is Helen Clark, who is a globalist. So when you're a globalist, do you have our country's best interests at heart? That's the question I want to know. Are we still sovereign? Does a foreign billionaire club have more influence on our policy and our laws than we do? Well, when did the Labour Party ever ask us in an election if we want to go to a cashless society and if we want to go to artificial intelligence where all our personal information, all our banking is online and they can control us? That's leading us into a social credit system. When did they ever campaign on that? And by crikeys, when I get out on the campaign trail, I will be asking Nanaya, did you get the mandate from the people to push this out? Do you know that that's what your government is doing? Do you know that the World Economic Forum has more influence on your policy? Oh, kia ora e te whānau. I'm not too sure what happened there, but I think we had a little power outage. So hopefully we're still there. Can you see me and hear me? Just checking to see if you can see me and hear me, if someone can come online. Yep, cool. Had a little power outage, so all good. We're back online again, so that's good. Such is life. If it's not a power outage, it's usually an IT outage or something like that. But yeah, so this is what concerns me about politicians and parties, and as Papa Pim Bird put it, it's about mano rite. It's like if you say you're going to do something, do it. You're going to make promises, stick to those promises. Don't make them because you want someone's vote. Have integrity. It's about having integrity in what you say. And mano orite stands for having integrity for what you say, putting your money where your waha is, basically. So I just want to go back to some of the comments. What does Kataraina say? Nanaya, yes, confrontu. What consultation? That's right. Yes, I know. Sorry, hun. It was a power outage. What does Tangi say? Just another form of injection to put and on whānau, another, what is it, scare, make people fears even more. Our ancestors never had these problems when they were growing up. Yeah. Tigger said, yep. Oh, you can hear me. All good again. Thank you for hanging in there. I appreciate that. I can see and hear kapai. All good, kapai. Kataraina said, yes, we can hear and see you fine. Cool. So these are just important things to consider. There's just so many issues. I just sort of feel like our whānau, our communities are under siege. We're constantly battling, like I say, homelessness, the price of living, travelling to Tauranga. Lucky Tauranga is not that far away from Kirikiri from Hamilton. And so, the cost of fuel is still expensive. And, we have so much to consider. Do we spend our money on this? Do we spend our money on that? What shall we do? But I tell you what, we had an awesome weekend in Tauranga. Met a lot of wonderful people who do follow my lives. A lot of them come up and say, Whaia, we follow your lives, love your lives. And so thank you for that. Really, really appreciate that. I just want to acknowledge my darling again. He's my wingman. He's my tuara. He follows me. He'll follow me to the ends of the earth. But he knows me, and my daughter, what she put up on our private page, because my private page isn't open to the public. It's just for friends and whānau. And she shared her thoughts about me. It was quite touching, always trying to create a better future for her children and her mokopuna, always following the kaupapa. The kaupapa is what drives her, and for my daughter to put that up, I really, really appreciate it. I also want to acknowledge Darren Cassidy, my other wingman as well, who supported my campaign when I was part of Te Pāti Māori and supports me now here in this new journey of ours as the co-leader for the Outdoors and Freedom Party. I also want to acknowledge Papa Pim and our Murupara whānau, who, is an expert in LORE, and he came to tautoko the announcement in the weekend for me as co-leader with his whānau from Murupara. I also want to acknowledge my whānau for supporting me as well, and Hene Uru for allowing us to stay in her whare when I'm in Tauranga. I will travel to Tauranga from time to time to support Sue's campaign. And really looking forward to her campaign. It's already started, and I think she's going to do well. Why? Because people are looking for a change. Why? Because people have had enough of the status quo. Why? Because, we're seeing within our political space that there's no opposition to this government. No opposition. National make out that the opposing Labor Act make out that they're opposing Labor, but when it comes to segregation, when it comes to talking to the people within the occupation, saying that there were no identifiable leaders, well, you know, these leaders walk amongst the people. They don't put a crown on their head and say we're the leaders. The people actually know who the leaders are in the freedom space, freedom fighting space. So you know, that's about humility, having been humari, as we say in Māori, being humble, and just getting on with the mahi. Not saying look at me, who am I, look at all the work that I'm doing, but actually just getting on with the doing. So thank you, whānau, for tuning in, and thank you. I mean, I got so many comments of congratulations for becoming co-leader, and I just really appreciate your comments. I read them as they were coming through. I was sitting having dinner with my new whānau in the Equals and Freedoms Party, and you know, it's going to be some really exciting times. Bring on the local government election, and bring on our national elections, and we'll keep in touch. What does Una say? Support you. I feel the past Māori walk the safe place and benefits from endorsing vaccination. Yeah, humble would work. Thank you, Judith. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to sign out now, whānau. Kia pai tōra. I was thinking it's good timing because my husband's just finished drying the lunchtime dishes. He didn't hear that. No, I didn't time it for him to finish drying the dishes, but hey, we were going to have a laugh. We've got to find our place. We've got to find our place in society. We've got to find like-minded people. We've got to find our whānau, because what this whole pandemic has done is divided whānau. Like for me, I believe in an integrated approach. Not all my whānau, but you know, they support what the doctors say. They believe in the doctors. They believe the doctors when the doctor said, you know, the COVID got your father into hospital. Well, no, actually, he got injured with the second jab and he got injured with the booster as well. So, you know, the different narratives, and it saddens me. It saddens me that it divides whānau, divides communities, divides our society, and but we will come together. Why? Because we are whānau. Why? Because we are communities. Why? Because we are one society, and we have to come together. But we have to hold our politicians accountable. And I expect if I get into Parliament, if I have the privilege to represent you in Parliament, that you hold me accountable. I will never forget where I come from. And those that know me know that, and that's why I'm known as the kaupapa woman, because I will follow a kaupapa through, and I am kaupapa driven. So, kia pai tōra, ka kite anō, and we will catch up again soon. Kia ora rā. Ka kite.